Welcome back to another follow along with me, Miss B. We are now in week 7 of quarter 3, moving on to landscape 4, looking at perspective. So we will need paper, pencil, and something to color with. Now you can use markers and color pencils and crayons because we are going to need light and dark colors. Just make sure that you're following the instructions and do it in the correct order so that it comes out correctly. So we do want to hold our paper landscape. And we're going to be looking at perspective this week. So what's closest to us, what's farthest away from us. We're going to be working with 2 middle grounds. We're going to keep it simple because this will be a 1-week project since this is a 4-day week. So we are going to start with our foreground line. Now this is very light. I had new lighting, tried to make it brighter, but it kind of washed out the pencil. Plus I draw very lightly. So we have a foreground line, we have a middle ground line, we have a second middle ground line, and then we have our background. You will need an eraser for this project, so do make sure you have one. And we're just going to go one item at a time. So we're just going to be doing trees in perspective. So starting up at the top of your paper, not going all the way to the bottom, but going down into the foreground. And then giving your tree some ground. These are curved lines going from the very top of the page into the foreground. And then I'm erasing the lines that cut through our trunk of the tree. Again, this is very light, but I am going to do color as we go instead of drawing this out all at once. So once you've erased the lines inside the trunk of your tree, you're going to get your darkest brown possible, and you're going to trace those lines. So again, if marker is your darkest brown, you can trace this in brown marker or your darkest brown crayon. So again, we're just making the outline of the trunks of our tree. We will go back and color these in. And we also want to make sure we do the outline or trace the line of our ground that our tree that is closest to us touches, just like this. So I'm going to move on to my second tree, going into the first middle ground that we have, making sure that it is slightly smaller than the first tree. Again, this is very light first, but I will trace it after I erase the lines inside of the trunk, and you'll be able to see it better. So I'm not going to be using my darkest brown, I'm going to be using the next darkest brown, so the next lightest color in my brown palette. So if you used marker, now would be a good time to move to your darkest brown crayon. Same thing with the grass, we used our darkest green. Now we're going to move to a lighter green. And this is why I've asked you guys several times to make sure you have a 24 pack of colored pencils or 24 pack of crayons, because this is why a lot of these projects aren't turning out for you guys, because you don't have the right materials. So we're moving on to our third tree into the next section, which is the second middle ground. Again, making it slightly smaller than the tree before it, giving it a ground and erasing the line that goes through it. And moving to my next lightest brown color. I'm also going to remember to move to my next lightest green color. So we are going from darkest to lightest. You should have 3 to 4 browns and you should have 3 to 4 greens. Now we have one more tree we're going to draw, which is going to be the smallest tree. And all of these trees start at the very top of your paper and go down into your foregrounds and middle grounds. Your last tree is going to touch the very top line or your background line. And then using your lightest brown, we're going to trace that and then trace the background line. And you'll notice I'm into my yellow-green. Now as I start to add color, again, we're going from darkest to lightest. So I want to get my darkest green and trace that line first, then my medium green, and then we'll start on the trunks of the trees. So I'm going in with my darkest brown to create the tree texture. And then I'm gonna color it in a little bit lighter. Now you can use the same crayon, just don't put a lot of pressure on it when you fill the tree in. Put tons of pressure on it though when you are creating the texture. Now, as we've discovered in previous projects, mixing colors gives our pictures a much richer texture. They become more vibrant, and they look a little bit more detailed. So I am going to add a different color brown into this tree to blend it all together and to make it pop out a little bit more. Now this light brown that I've used as my second color in my first tree is going to be my darkest color in the next tree. Now remember, we want each tree to be lighter than the next, and that is something I'm going to be looking for as I grade these, because we want our darkest colors in the foreground, our lightest colors in the background. So make sure that you are following these directions and doing it as I'm doing it. So again, we have a little bit lighter of a brown filling in the tree trunk here, and then even lighter brown is going to go on top of that to fill in. So you notice as I do the textures in the trunks, I am not using the same brown. I am using the same pressure though. So each tree trunk has gone lighter and lighter in color. And then this is the second color I used on my second tree. It's going to be the first color on my third tree, and then we'll get lighter as we go. So if you've done this correctly, your tree should go from dark to light, large to small. So remember, what's closest to us is always going to be bigger than what's farthest from us. So going in with my dark green, I'm going to add some blades of grass and then lightly color in. And I'm going to do this for each section. So make sure you have all your greens that you have available to complete this section. So my lightest blades of grass are just going to go on the top background line. They're not going to get colored over, but I do want to make sure that I do have some blades of grass back there. And then the last thing I'm going to do is fill in the background color, which is going to be a light blue, then a little bit darker of a blue, then I'm going to blend them together with white. So here we have our final project. We have the foreground, 2 middle grounds, and a background. Colors going from darkest to lightest. Don't forget to submit your assignment on Schoology for full credit. If you have any questions, send me a message via Schoology. Don't forget to click the like button and have a nice day.